your girl, your host, Jocelyn, y como siempre, I am so grateful you are here and so grateful that you are tuning into this conversation with a very special guest, Sarah Kim, who is a writer, editor, connector. She is deeply invested in putting together events that create opportunities to ask questions and working with experts to help answer them. In the past, she's worked in editorial for Antenna Magazine, Outdoor Voices, The Recreationalist, and Goat's Greatest, in social and digital for Nike, New York City, and Converse, as well as influencer marketing with brands like Google, Red Bull, and Jordan Brand. She's recently added mom to her title, the hardest, best job yet, in her words. Sarah Kim, I'm so excited that you're here and that we're finally having this conversation.
Finally, it's like been postponed because life is life. But it's just at the right time. I always feel that way. It's going to happen when it's meant to happen. So I'm really, really grateful to be here.
Absolutely. And I just want to preface and kind of give a little more texture to the people listening that we met at a dinner late last year. Shout out to Zuela for creating the space that ultimately led to our union. And we just had a very brief, but I really enjoyed the conversation that we had at that dinner. And I was just immediately was like, I would love to have you as a guest on the podcast. So this is somewhat of like a continuation to the conversation that we started. All that said, let's start our conversation with what it is that you currently feel grateful for in this moment.
I was driving in the car on the way to my office with the sun shining down on my face after this few days of rain, and I could cry just thinking about what I'm grateful for. I think I'm in a really good season of my marriage. I'm in a really good season in terms of motherhood, and I'm just in awe of all the women that I've surrounded myself with. I'm a girlfriend and I were saying last night, one of my best friends, people could be so lucky to be around women. They could be so lucky that we would give them any time of day. And I truly feel that way. There are just some incredible women that I feel I built rapport with, or have been doing life with, or am in community with. And we sort of leveled up our relationships, I feel in the last year. And that's been really, really cool, because it does take a level of vulnerability. And I think vulnerability is really hard. And then to be on the other side of vulnerability and to be whoa, we are sharing all this really amazing stuff. And it's not easy. It's not hard. And it's really cool that it's safe. It feels safe. We've done the work to make sure that it feels safe to be able to do that. And then, my husband and I, we went on a date on January 2nd. I didn't know he had the day off. I didn't know he was taking the day off. And our nanny came to watch our baby boy. And we went on a day date, and we just haven't done that in so long. And, we went through marriage counseling last year. It was really, it was rough. Marriage is hard. And it feels so nice to be on this side of enjoying each other's company and looking forward to being together, and not just grinding it out every day. It just feels bro, I'm just trying to breathe. Just trying to get up for some air. And we both feel that way. So it feels like a really good season. I'm feeling so grateful for my marriage in this season, motherhood in this season, and just women, capital W women everywhere.
I love that so much. And typically I do often start these conversations by asking my guests, how would you describe this current season of your life? And I, for some reason, just kind of feel inspired to leave that at the end with you, and kind of just start somewhat at the beginning. And by beginning, I mean the beginning of your business, which
Yes.
we're going to get into right now.
Yes.
But you mentioned some really beautiful things that I jotted down here, like, you know, the good season of your marriage and motherhood, and leveling up relationships, specifically with vulnerability, I think is so important. So I'm excited to touch on that at the end of this conversation. But so the bio that I read was from your website of By Way of Us. And what wasn't mentioned specifically in that bio is that you're the co-founder of By Way of Us. So I'd love for you to share with us very briefly, like how you would describe what By Way of Us is in your own words.
By Way of Us is like, if you come to any of our events, you leave feeling like, yo, I'm so glad I went. I'm so glad I went. Or, oh my God, I've been meaning to meet that person. It's so crazy that I said yes to going to that event because I met the person I was supposed to meet there. Or you leave feeling like, wow, like I didn't know I need to hear that, and I need to hear that. I'm interested in digging into that a little bit more. I feel like By Way of Us is just kind of like a ripple in what is already going on in your life, maybe like a little spark that helps sort of catapult and like push you to where you need to go or where you're on the journey to. And it could be tennis, like it could be like coming to a therapy event. It could be like a mom group. It could be a comedy show, something we're putting on at the end of the month. Like any one of those things that you're like, yo, I love how I felt at that place in that moment with those people. I want to continue writing. I want to continue moving my body. I feel inspired to X, Y, Z. And so for me, it's like, it started as editorial. It moved into events when I moved to LA. But for me, like, it's always been a way to like highlight women and highlight people at what they're good at and just like show them off. Like, I feel like I love being everyone's hype person. Mostly because I appreciate people doing it for me too. And so with By Way of Us, it's by way of fill in the blank, kind of. Us is a placeholder. It's by way of Jocelyn, it's by way of on running if we're doing a tennis sponsorship. It's by way of Asi with my friend Sana, right? So how can I, who is going to, who are we doing this with? And like, how can I help like further them, or how can we help each other grow? It's really about events as a conduit to highlight people and businesses.
Yes. And I honestly hadn't heard of it until I met you at the dinner, and I'm really looking forward to attending one of your events. But I'd love for you to also share with us why you created it.
I worked at a men's magazine called Antenna. It was under Harris Publishing, which is the owner of Slam, Double XL, Rides, 0 to 60, like all these amazing Farmer's Almanac, like just an old school New York, like publishing company. And our creative director, who is my mentor and just like the greatest, his name's Evan Gubernick. You always look for mentors and you're kind of like, well, how and where does that happen? And he just schooled us. He just schooled us all, and it was so cool to be able to work with him on the project that he actually wanted to work on after starting all of those magazines. He's like, no, Antenna is the thing that I want to make now. And we were just highlighting all these really cool guys. As a young 20-something-year-old in New York City, it was really, really fun to hang out with all these very cute skateboarders and snowboarders and BMX boys and athletes. It was fun. But then when we folded, which is 2012, when everything was folding, time went digital, like it was a whole thing. It was really interesting to see that I was kind of over talking about boys. I didn't want to talk about boys anymore. I was really, really into all of the women that were doing all the interviews for us and all of the women that were shooting for us. And it was just like, why are we still talking about boys? It was funny because Antenna was run by all women, outside of Evan, who just was like schooling us all, it was so amazing. And so 2012, antenna folded. It's right around the time that the word like influencer started to like bubble up in like agency land, and like Instagram had started in 2000, whatever year it was, 8 or 10, I'm not sure. And I already was allergic to the term. I was like, what is this about? Influential for what? And even then, it was about highlighting women who are behind the scenes. I remember the first woman we interviewed, her name's Rachel Wang. She's a really beautiful stylist. I interviewed my friend So Super Sam, like a second one. But one of my favorite interviews, her name's Anjin Song. She like did operations for Momofuku for David Chang for like a decade plus, something like that. And she was like, "Are you sure you don't want to interview Dave?" I'm like, "Anjin, I don't want to interview Dave." Just a beautiful half Korean woman, so photogenic. And she like made a tteokguk, which is like Korean rice cake. Like the interview was just so beautiful. And there's so many of these women, and I still grapple with this today. Like, I don't have a press release. Like, I don't want a press release. I don't need a PR person. I don't really want a PR person. I know how that machine works because I've been an editor for a really long time. You send the press release, album's dropping, or someone's coming up with the show, or someone has something they need to release. And so press works to then ride the story to gain some traction, right? But it was interesting with influencers because there was something that they were dropping. There was a collaborative product or whatever it was. And I was like, these women don't have press releases because they would never have one about themselves. They would never ask to be interviewed. They could really care less. It wasn't even about women who were being like coy about it. It was just like my friend Amel, she used to be the creative director of Vice. I was like, why are we still talking about Shane Smith? And she's like, I literally don't have time to be interviewed. Like, I have to go to Sundance and I have to go to this. And then, we had just have so much going on. Like, it's not in my wheelhouse, or I don't care to garner press. Like, it's not important to me. And those women I'm so attracted to, like I love those girls. And so for me, it was about really highlighting women who are behind the scenes, who are like way too busy for interviews. They just have so much work going on, so much stuff going on, but they would make time for me because we're friends. Like, I remember my girl Mel was like, I got 1 hour. She was on a work call as she rolled up to the shoot, and she took a work call as she left, and I'm like, the creative director of Vice, like, we just got to interview her. Like, how do these women function? Not the women who are ready and willing to talk about their skincare routine. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I have friends who make a living and pay their mortgage by content creation, and so it's not a dig against that. But when by way of Brooklyn, it was called, started, I was really, really interested in interviewing these women that just like could have cared less about getting press. And to me, they were the more interesting women because we're not hearing from them, because there was no system that made it so that we could hear from them. And so that was kind of my MO when I started.
Yes, I love that. And I honestly relate to that passion so much, because when I started my blog back in peak blog days of like around 2014, I was interviewing people who were typically behind the scenes, because it really intrigued me that these really incredible people weren't getting seen. Like, who's telling the stories of these incredible storytellers, So I relate to that so much. And something that we touched on at our conversation when we met at the dinner was that you had a moment where you were grappling with letting go of editorial, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly. And your friends were like, do you even still like editorial? And this kind of led us to talking about taking our quote unquote side hustles, our passions more seriously. Tell us a bit more about that moment and that pivot.
It was so pivotal. Like, it was so pivotal for me. Being an entrepreneur, and being someone who is very prideful, it's really hard to ask for help. Help is hard, I think. And so there are all these things that you need to do in order to level up your business, right? And I was like, God, like, I know I have something. I just don't know what it is. What is this sauce that I feel like I have, right? And so I got a group of my girlfriends together, Ashton Strong, so I've known for over a decade, Zarna Surti, who is a creative director of Purpose at Nike, my friend Yvonne, who is a writer. She just finished writing on Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And then a woman that was helping me named Ashley. And I just asked them, what is it that you think? You guys are smart. You guys have attended events. Like, you guys work for these huge companies. What do you think it is that makes By Way of Us, By Way of Us? And they really said the events, and it really wasn't what I want to hear. And Zarna, that's a friend that I'm so grateful for. We did business coaching together. We weren't like close, we were acquaintances, but when we did business coaching together, we were talking about finances. We were talking about like how to level up. Her just being who she is as a person helped me to want to level up. Those people that just exist, and just by being who they are, they're radiant, confident, amazing selves. They're just like, oh my gosh, like, I want to be better. And
Yes.
she's someone that's like that for me. She, because of our relationship, felt confident enough to say, Sarah, do you even like editorial anymore? Do you even want to do it? You don't have to do it. And I just was like kind of stunned, because she's an editor also. And it is like grueling. It's like a lot of work to be an editor, whether you're doing audio, or whether you're doing a podcast, or whether you have a blog, or whether you have a magazine, like a book, any of those things. An editor is like it's hard, And for me too, it really became, who is editorial for at this point? Is it for me? Is it for our community members? Like, is it for the person reading? Like, what is the function of that? And so when she asked me, I think I was really taken aback, because everyone says they really like events, and I'm not an event producer. One thing about me, I like doing what I'm good at. I don't like doing new things. I don't like being a beginner. It's not my favorite thing. I like being an expert, and so even hearing you say the editor part, it's just like, it's so interesting how I feel when I hear that said about me, in this season of my life. And for her to say that, and to be able to pivot, and to be able to have like a really hard look, then I have the conversation, like, who is editorial for? Is it for me to satiate this part of the expert that I feel like I am, to be able to tout that she has done da 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 da, and that's why By Way of Us is editorial. No one cares about that. No one's reading. No one's reading anymore. 1,000 words for what? That has to do with me. That has nothing to do with me serving my community. No one's reading that stuff. Love the people we're interviewing. No one's reading that, And so, if someone's experience is what matters to me, and that's what I can extract from editorial, or that's what I can extract from an interview, then how do we break that down into social? How do we break that down into different ways in which people can experience? They can see a pull quote and be like, oh God, thank God I don't have to choose one. Or, oh man, like, it took you 40 years to even kick off. Like, wow, I'm only 20 something. I don't need to have it all figured out yet. Then the function of editorial became very different, because I realized when Zarna asked that question, it was self-serving. And if I still want to continue and serve myself in that way, it would have been okay. But as a time function, as a community-oriented person, like, it was not serving my community. How do I take what the purpose of that was and the need of that was, to be able to serve and help and be more helpful, while separating like what I felt like was serving myself for that, which would have been fine had I wanted to continue. But it's so laborious. I was like, it kind of was freeing to have permission to be like, oh yeah, I don't have to do this. She gave me permission to give myself permission to not have to do it anymore. And that felt really, really good.
It sounds like just such a simple question. Like, do you even like doing this anymore? And I think so often we not even consciously avoid that question, because we're afraid of what our true answer is going to, the changes it's going to bring about for us. And for you, having been in editorial for so long, when we have invested so much time and energy into something, into a path, into something that ultimately becomes our identity, it's like, if I admit that I don't like this anymore, then there's also a version of me that I have to let go of.
Yes. And then a new version. If I knew what if I knew what V2 was, then I have no problem letting go of V1. But because if I let go of V1, then it gives me room to explore V2. But not being able to say that in an Instagram bio, or to say that if I'm at a dinner party, or to say that that's my insecurity, right? And then I have to grapple with that. And so that is the uncomfortable part. I think a lot of us are okay with letting go sometimes of what V1 is. I can admit that I don't like it anymore, but the not knowing of what V2 is and expecting our society and our culture forcing us to know already what V2 would be of us is so unfair. And it's such a terrible expectation, because how can I know? How could I know? Like, we should honor that searching time more. I think we are. There's enough memes, there's enough stuff being shared that I feel like we're trying to do that, and we are doing that, and rest is being prioritized, and all of those things. But it's really scary to go to somewhere outside and be like, yo, I don't know how I'm going to describe what I do in a place like Los Angeles, in a place like New York, and in any of these metropolitan cities where that is oftentimes the first question, you know?
I love that you're bringing this up because, you know, to be completely honest, I relate to that so much and so recently, because, you know, amidst the pandemic, and I think this is something so many people can relate to, I just experienced so many pivots. And these past few years have been extremely explorative for me of, okay, I know what I'm being pulled from, but I can't fully express with full clarity what it is that I'm being pulled into. And I'm exploring that. But I noticed that when I would be out and about and would go to gatherings or whatever, and people would ask, you know, what do you do? Because we ask that so much, and especially in LA. I found myself really detesting that question during this time of my life, because it does bring about insecurity. It does, you know, make you. And I found myself just answering the question with a past version of myself.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like, you know, and it doesn't feel right. So I just wanted to share that for anyone who was also listening. It was like, yes, I feel that way. And I'm here just sharing that. Yes, I have felt that way.
It's functionally okay for you to say a past version of yourself. If you read the room and you know that those people that you're in the room with need that answer, that's fine. You're just reading the room. If that is efficient for you, that's okay. But if you get to a conversation like I feel like we had at Zola's dinner, because it was prepped for those kinds of people to be able to have intentional conversation and thoughtful conversation, I think there's room for I don't know. I don't know right now. I'm exploring right now. And how freeing it would be if the room is right, if the person you're talking to, you can gauge that they can receive that. It would be really cool to like explore what that would look like. I think what you sound like and like the previous experiences you were in, it just is like what you say to do. And we're passing time and it's conversation and it's fine. And I think that's fine sometimes to do a past version. But when there is someone who's worthwhile, you know, I think it's like really empowering to say, and gives permission to that person to be able to say like, yo, like I'm in a season of transition right now. Like I'm in a season of exploration right now. And I'm not really sure. I don't know. I think I know is like, again, I've told my sister this, my sister's a doctor. I've told like myself this, like there are rooms where you can say, I don't know. And it's like, oh my God, that is so brave. And there are rooms where you say, you can't say, my sister's a doctor. She can't say, I don't know, you know? And so you have to read the room. But if there is a place and there are people, I think that kind of like those moments, I think will lead to greater sort of change and permission for us to be able to say, I don't know.
Yeah. And I thank you for affirming that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the key word here is permission, right? Is like giving yourself permission to say, I don't like this anymore. I don't resonate with this anymore. Mm-hmm. Giving yourself the permission to say, I don't know how to answer this question in this moment. I'm currently in transition.
Yes.
I'm currently exploring and really realizing that's actually something to be really proud of. Because it takes courage. And as you said, like the right people will receive that truth and be like, wow, how courageous of you.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. Like I've met someone who can say, I don't know, versus it's so countercultural to say, I don't know. As women, I think we have to be choosy about where and when we say that. Obviously, as women of color, I think we have to be choosy about when and where we say that. There's functionally, we know how to move. And so I think if you can read it in a way that feels like you could give life to someone and like help someone feel brave themselves and the conversation's going well, I think that there's such beauty in that. It's a vulnerability piece again. Can I be vulnerable with you? I love being vulnerable I'm the first person when I meet a mom to be like, yo, and our marriage counselor, to just be able to give permission for it to be hard. It's really hard being married. How can I lend that vulnerability in order for deeper connection or to give someone else permission to be able to say, yo, I need help too. Or like, yo, I also don't know. I think permission, vulnerability, all of that is like really, really interesting how that tethers together.
Yeah. And vulnerability really does deepen relationships, which you gave gratitude to earlier. And also just like on a larger scope, just in general in life, when you do show up as your true self, whatever that current true self is, it gives you the opportunity to actually align with your people.
Yes. 100. I said this last night. It's like you're missing out if you're because you can't control anyone else. The only person you know through and through is yourself. I'm married. I don't know my partner. The only person you know is you, right? Like you cannot know anyone else's intention. You can't know anyone else's. You can get to know people. You can get close to people. You can build community, of course. But if you are not being authentic to yourself, and I know authenticity is a buzzword, truly all of those things, if you're not being genuine, you're missing out. You're missing out. You're misaligning. You're literally like getting aligned to like whatever portrayal or whatever version is. And it's just like, it's an exchange, like you're giving off the vibe. And so you're getting a vibe back. You're giving off the energy. So you're getting that energy back, and if you just don't know, you don't know what people need. You don't know what people want. You don't know what need you're fulfilling by just sharing the true XYZ thing or putting out an ask that feels really scary to ask. You don't know someone's like, oh my God, like I wish that someone could ask me about XYZ thing. I have so much to share about this. But if you're faking it, not faking it, that's not the right word. If you're putting on a version that you think is serving other people, you're missing out.
Yeah. And I think that that's largely because we think it's safer to put on a mask than it is to be our true selves. And for anyone listening who kind of wants an example of what that looks like, it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about of like, if I express my truth of I'm currently in a state of transition and I'm exploring, and someone responds like, wow, thank you for sharing that honesty. I honor, you being vulnerable enough to share that with me, and I'm proud of you, or that's so courageous of you. For me personally, that would make me feel like, okay, I expressed my truth and it led me to meeting someone who sees me. It led me to meeting my kind of person, because yes, like this does take vulnerability and courage to admit this and to do this and to walk this path. And I feel like that's honestly partly like what I felt when I met you at the dinner.
I resonate with that too. I felt that way also.
Yeah.
Because we're more interested in hearing each other's stories than at that point. Oh, like you're in transition from what to what? Or like, what does your exploring process look like now? Like it warrants so many other questions when you can meet someone who receives that. Sharing that is the hardest part, I think, first. And then receiving that, like you can dodge the question if someone said that to you and you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like you can answer that way. Or you can be like, oh, well, like, what have you been doing to explore your time?
Yeah.
Ceramics, like that's so cool. Or like you've been practicing more yoga, like at home or at a studio, like there's so much further conversation, regardless of where I'm at, or imagine then for anyone who's listening, like I decide I want to quit my job, XYZ job, theoretical job. I have someone that I can refer back to being like, okay, like, how long did you explore your time for before you jump to another job? Like, then there's a reference point. Then I feel bravery. I feel less alone. I feel all of those things. Like, it's so good. I think of like the meme, like, nobody knows in this room that I XYZ, like standing in the wall of the party. Like, imagine we're all wearing masks and we're all talking about our past selves. But imagine everyone in that room is actually going to exploration and transition. That could be such a more fruitful room, but all it would require is one person being vulnerable about that, and another person then receiving that. Then imagine everyone just like, I'm actually also going through transition. I was here, but I hate it here. But it's really hard because that brand name or that company or that whatever fill in the blank fulfills this part of me that's like saying that big company corporate brand name, and then the walls sort of come down. But there are some rooms they can't do that in. And that's okay too. It's just a matter of like reading it and assessing it and like figuring it out.
Yeah. Yeah. Giving yourself permission really does give others permission as well. And on that note, I do really want to touch on, what we touched on also at our brief conversation, which was taking our passions more seriously and like really owning them. Because it's one thing to like transition into something, but it's another thing to really like stand tall in it and finally get to the point where you're like, this is what I'm doing. I'm owning this. It's not like a side thing. It's not, I've realized that this is my focus now.
I've been working on this for 10 years, and I think only this year have I like been really proud to like tout it. And a lot of it has to do with me, I loved being an editor for so long. I really enjoyed that. And I really liked helping be the person in the corporate structure. And they were cool brands. Like I liked OV at a time. Like I really like Go. I like the people that I worked with there so much, and it's just like, it's nice to say those things for what I needed at that time for people to recognize and be like, oh, she's done some stuff. Now I wouldn't even bring those up. Like by way of us, I'm not saying any of that stuff, right? I say it if I need to get sponsorship, but I'm not saying it to any of the women that are in the room. They can read it, they can find it, it's fine if you need to know. But it was really actually a conversation with my husband. My husband owns a clothing company, does really well, sells a lot of t-shirts, sells a lot of clothes. I love his brain. He's just, the man's got it. Trend forecaster, he just got it. So smart. My husband is like white and 6'5", and like when we go to places, people think he's someone. Like they think that they'll just like let him through the door. Where people like will look at, I will have bought the ticket and like overpaid for the ticket, and they'll still question me. Like, oh, miss, like, are you sure you're supposed to be here? I'm like, yeah, here's my ticket. Alex, my husband, they'll just like let him through the door. They think he's like an NBA player. And so I have noticed this. I've observed it in our marriage, in our friendship. We were friends for a long time before we got dated and married. And then I think during the pandemic, even it was like I was trying to like hustle and make like $3,000 in 1 month for a job and like $5,000 for like another job here. And we were like in a season of like financial like strength, and he goes, girl, like that 3K, 5K isn't really it's not gonna like move the needle that much. Like I can pay for the mortgage. It's okay. And I was like, it kind of just dawned on me. If I'm married to a white man who's making mad money right now and is giving me permission to say like, why are you not working on your own thing? I got us right now. I'm like this Korean American woman that like, no, I'm contributing. I'm giving my 3K. And like my 3K wasn't touching what he was making at that time. It's not even close, right? But I'm like, I'm exerting, I'm grinding, I'm effort. And he's like, you know what? Or you could just work on your stuff right now because I got us right now. And so I really had to grapple with like, well, what does that mean for me as like a working woman and a career woman and like as a stay-at-home mom and like this is so stereotypical and I hate this shit and all that stuff. And then I was like, yo, you know what? You're right. The world only says yes to you. Somehow money finds Alex. Money, somehow I owe parking tickets from like years ago. Debt finds me. That's different. It's different. Somehow I owe someone something. It's just different, right? The world doesn't say yes to me in the way that it says yes to Alex. Because of who he is and because of our society and because of the system and because of, all that. But in his generosity in our partnership, in his like awareness of those things, right? And in our marriage and like in the context of that, and as both as business owners, he said, I got it. Why don't you work on your stuff? And for me, it kind of was an epiphany. Like the world says yes to him. He has a leg up and he's been resourceful and stewarded that really well. And he's going for it so much so that he's given me as his partner, as his friend, all of these things, as someone he admires as an entrepreneur, this room that maybe the world was not giving me in a different way to just go. And I was like, why am I trying to hustle so hard to make an influencer list for a brand that I don't love for 3K? What a waste of time. When I can be putting together these events that people are feeling like, God, I'm so glad I went. That's such a better use of my time and a better use of my energy. And it at first is really hard for me to grapple with. But again, in the context of my vulnerability, in my growth, in our season of our marriage, and like for the safety and being able to share those things and to recognize those things, to reflect those things about ourselves. He's like, it's not really going to help that much. I got us. Like, why don't you just work on like what you care about working on right now? I know that's privilege. I know there's a lot of stuff that's tethered to that other people don't have. I have a lot of friends who are single moms who are working on their businesses while currently looking for, like there's a lot of other stuff. So I understand the privilege in which I'm able to say that. But I think that had I not recognized for myself, I still would be chasing like 3K, 5K checks to be able to like support and contribute and grind while not working on my passion project. I think the second part about that and making it my business versus a secondary thing is like getting people that I really admired and trusted. That think group that I had together, that brain trust that I had together, people reflecting that back to me was really big. But you can make that for yourself, right? Like I wasn't putting that together for myself before because I was scared of what people were going to say. But these are people who know me and see me, and I still would have received what they had said had there been critique, which Zarna initially I felt like critique, but really it was permission and freedom when she had shared that with me. And so for me, you make your own success. Like there is obviously like, I believe in God, like God is like orchestrating for your good. He is very intentional about that orchestration. There is no misstep. Nothing is on accident. Everything is on purpose. But there is a working out of your faith that is required. Like I have all these amazing women who I love hearing from. Why would I not ask them if I can buy them dinner or lunch and help me sort of parse out like what are the best parts of this business? Like what should I continue on? And asking for help has been really, really like empowering and like really shown a return for me in the past year in a way that I had just like exponential return. It's been like, I think once you own it, people see that for you. It requires practice. Like I remember, okay, what is like my one-liner? And that was a really hard thing. So we put together like one-liner workshops. Once I got good at saying my one-liner, it felt really easy. Not easy, but it felt like, oh, wow, I can say it without stumbling over the words. By Way of Us curates events for cool women looking for real community. And everyone that I said to is like, I'm a cool woman. I'm looking for real community. And then it just gives you a one way to talk about it. But without that one-liner, I was really having a hard time, And so there are little things that I think you can do for yourself that help you continue. It just wasn't, I had that epiphany when Alex and I had that conversation, but there were small things that I did. I did a one-liner workshop with Janet, my business coach, before. Because she said, it seems like you're stumbling when you're trying to explain what it is you do. Let's figure out exactly what it is you do and you want to tell people you do. That was really helpful for me as someone who loves saying editor, but didn't want to say that. Right. So one-liner workshop. Then I got a think group together of women that I really admire who help cherry pick the best things about my business, the secret sauce of my business, what I could package and put and sell and like bring more people in. And then it was hiring like a team. Like I've hired 2 women in the past year, this woman named Jamie and another woman named Astrid. And they are just like, I can't believe that I have such smart women helping me. Another woman named Steph helping my strategy. Like I I cannot believe that I have such smart, generous, and like intentional women helping me with my business. Like it's mind blowing. And so to see that reflected all back to me, those are all steps over maybe like a year, maybe like 2 years, right? And so now I feel taller, in a way that I hadn't. Like I felt like a little bit and then a little bit letting go of my shoulders and like, I'm standing tall. Maybe I'll put on some heels, like I'm feeling really good. But it wasn't just a one day thing. I think it was a lot of epiphany over time. Reading has really helped. Like my business coach, Janet, there's a money book that she gave me, You're a Badass at Making Money. I think I only read the first chapter. I think it was the only chapter I need to read. I started reading The Artist's Way with some friends that I really love. And that has been like really like freeing and eye-opening. And it's actually taken a lot of ego out of the work that I'm doing. It's not about me. It's about like, if everyone's a creative, how am I making sure this work gets out? So for me, like those things have been really helpful too. Practical, if someone wants to like buy a book today. You're a Badass at Making Money was really something that was really helpful for me when I was thinking about money. And then The Artist's Way, it really like level sets. Like it's not about ego. It's actually just about your gift and like getting it. You're squandering it if you don't, kind of. And so those things have been really helpful along with the other experiences.
Let's take a moment. Let's take a breather and talk about our partner, Athletic Greens, who I'm so grateful for because they introduced me to a product that I am so genuinely enthusiastic about sharing with you because it has become one of my hands down all-time favorite products that I have ever invested in, come across, digested. Their product, AG1. What is AG1? So with one scoop of Athletic Greens AG1, you are absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source ingredients, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focus, aging, literally all the things. I was so excited to say yes to this partnership with Athletic Greens and to taste and try their product AG1 because I have been intending to integrate supplements, daily supplements and vitamins and minerals into my life. And I just kept putting it off because honestly, the thought of getting all these different kinds of supplements and figuring out which ones my body actually enjoys and my body actually needs just made me further delay actually getting around to it. And AG1 has just made it so convenient for me because I am getting all the supplements, all the vitamins, minerals, all the good stuff that I have been desiring in just one scoop. It's so great. And I love that it's lifestyle friendly. So whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free, it's friendly for your lifestyle, which I love because as many of you know, your girl is primarily basically, I'm vegan. And it contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. And yes, it does actually taste really good. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. Again, it's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/SWG. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/SWG to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. I'm telling y'all, this is a great investment for your overall optimal health and well-being, mentally, physically, and spiritually. I have left a link in the description below for your convenience. Now, without further ado, let's get back into this conversation. I want to transition into motherhood because I know motherhood has had such a huge role in all of this in the past few years. But before I do, there's a few things that I just want to kind of touch on and highlight from everything that you shared right now. What stood out for me in what you shared is that, one, it's important to really like acknowledge and accept the blessings that are being gifted to you, and making the most out of those blessings. And for you, the blessing was having this partner who is gifting you this space and this freedom. And you mentioned that at the time you were really grappling with still wanting to contribute financially. But I think it's important that we realize that when we choose ourselves, we're still contributing, but just in a different way. You may have not been contributing financially, but you were still contributing to the health of your relationship and your family and the people around you, et cetera, because you were gifting yourself permission to do something that you love, you know? So I really wanted to like highlight that because it felt important.
That's very good. And had I realized that sooner, I think I would have been easier to let that go faster. But money is such a crazy currency. It's the currency we value so much, but you're totally right. That's such a great call out. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to highlight as well is that, you know, we've been talking about gifting ourselves permission, but it sounds like from what you shared that, okay, you gifted yourself the permission and now it's important to get clear on what exactly I'm giving myself permission for. And for you, it was like the one-liner workshop and being able to really clearly express what it is you're working on, what it is you're creating, why you're creating it. And I think that's just so important because that's the foundational work. You know, you can't really build without that clarity. So I really wanted to highlight that.
We talk about imposter syndrome. And I think for me, it's not like a fake it till you make it thing. It's really about like, what tools can I set up so I don't feel like I'm faking it anymore? You know, like I understand that for some people in some roles, there is that thing. But for me, it really was about, okay, look, I will feel less of an imposter if I have my one life. Who can I ask to help me with that? It doesn't need to be a coach. It can be a friend. It's really easy to do it for other people. It's really hard to do it for yourself. You know, and so it was just like, okay, I feel kind of weird. It feels really uncomfortable. I haven't worn this for 10 years the way that I've worn editor. Like, what can I do that makes it feel like more comfortable and like getting used to? And so I think that, yeah, we talk about imposter syndrome a lot and kind of like why we experience it. For me, it was about like, how do I get rid of it? Like, let's just a little bit at a time.
Yeah. Yeah. And the last thing that I wanted to touch on that I think some people listening may want me to ask you to expand on a little bit is in regards to asking for help, because that's integral for every single one of us. We're all going to experience a season in our lives where we're going to have to ask for help. What did that look like for you? Like, is there a specific example that you can gift us in regards to what asking for help looked like for you?
Yes. For By Way of Us stuff, I really needed help with social and digital, like just creating assets to post. I just need help organizationally. And then it seems like with Mom World, it's really starting to grow and there's a real need for moms just hanging out with other moms, especially pandemic moms. Like, I feel like we missed out on the stuff that we thought we were going to get. Whether it's true or not, I'm not sure, but we don't know what we didn't have, right? So, and then it's been really interesting because I thought I was only going to hire one person. I'm a very small budget from like stuff that I get paid through otherwise. And all of that, not all of it, but most of that goes to like who's helping me. Right. So it's really interesting. Like I'm not paying myself, but like the salary that I'm getting is like going out to the people that I'm asking for help with. And it's interesting. This is not how it goes for everyone, but for me, one of the people that is helping me is married with a partner and is in her exploratory phase. She was a teacher before the pandemic and then had a baby and doesn't want to return to teaching again, right? So she's exploring what it looks like. And so the rate was pretty negotiable, I feel like, because she's in a financially stable situation with her and her partner. And this is her exploratory phase. So we did what felt like honored her time for her rate, you know, and then with the other person that was helping me, she has a full-time job actually, but she's working from home. And so her help wasn't predicated wasn't dictated on like how much I could pay her. And so those two conversations were obviously unique. But I think that when you're a small business, you have to get really like kind of like crafty about how you're hiring people and who you're hiring, because the salary is not going to match like a corporate company. But I find that more people want to help with the kind of work that you and I are doing. But the compensation is the hard part. And so for me, that not that those are hacks, but I wonder if like one, if we're more open about it being exploratory, like as long as it's exploratory and however much you need as you're exploring and can help me, it would be really helpful. She's a mom and she's like just so smart and so well read. And so she really enjoys the work, and she attended all the mom worlds before she started helping me with mom. So we're coming up with like mom's night outs for wine, motherhood and entrepreneurship. Like, how are we like, but through the context of being a mom now, right? So the other woman, she's so good at her job at social and digital at the company she works for, which like I've never used it for something that I enjoy and like am like just in my personal taste, like want to use it for. And so I'm like trying to think of it like Robin Hood. Like you're working for the man and then like use this for like by way of. And she's just like, it's crazy. Like I have teams for this, but I'm building it out myself. And so I think like it's been really cool to ask for help and like figuring out first what I need help with. I think that sometimes on business owners is hard. You just say everything because you do need help with everything. But like if you're seeing people's skill sets, like what do you need? I need help with social because I need events to go out so that people can sign up for events so that we put up more events. You know what I mean? And so navigating and figuring out exactly what it is you need help with, and then asking for that help, and then figuring out like there was a one woman who was like amazing, but she was like interviewing for like event director roles at like huge positions. Like, girl, I ain't got it for you like that. But when I do get money for a one-off event sponsor, I'm gonna hit you back. And she's like, yes, please. You know, and so you're just navigating the landscape of what you can do and what those people can do, because you don't know who doesn't need a lot of money. They might maybe just want to be a part of what you're building. And then maybe there's something where they can help you part-time, but they can't help you full-time. You know, it's a different landscape now. I think with people working from home as well too. There are a lot of people who are working corporate jobs that want to help smaller businesses who do have time that you don't have to pay what you think will cost you something that you won't be able to afford, you know? And so for me, it's been really interesting to like have amazing help and not feel like I'm so exhausted financially that the help is not worth it. It is well worth it. It's money well spent, while not being like depleted.
Thank you for being willing to share all of that. So helpful. Let's transition into motherhood. You became a mother in the midst of the pandemic, right? What year was your son born?
Our baby shower was the Saturday before everything shut down. It was so crazy. Like the NBA was canceled on Monday. We went to the last game on Sunday. Like it was really crazy.
I remember that.
And then I had Kiko April 7th. So it was like hospitals were really scary. I was hearing stories of like partners being able to come, and then in New York partners couldn't come. And just like, it just was like, everything was cheap. We were still washing our groceries, you know, like it was just like peak. It was really good. Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned earlier that you don't know what you didn't have. And there is an experience of motherhood that you didn't have that you don't know because you became a mother during the pandemic. But I'm curious if you could describe like what the unique experience is for a mother who became a mother during the pandemic. How would you describe that?
I have to preface this with like, I do feel really privileged because I know that for some people, this is not their experience at all. But for some people I've talked to, they share a similar experience in that like, I keep going April. Alex has a clothing company. He goes to Paris in January and June every season for Men's Fashion Week. And if Alex would have left me at home with the newborn in June, like our marriage would not be intact right now. Alex stayed at home for 3 months with Kiko and we would have never gotten that time. Never. There's like nothing else in the world that could have allowed for us to be at home together for 3 months. Like it's pretty insane. Maybe a week, you know, and then our marriage really would have suffered. Like it would have been really hard. I would have suffered emotionally, mentally. It would have been really, really hard. It still was hard, but it was better like together. And I can't imagine not having had that time, which makes it feel even crazier about mat leave and paternity leave in our country. It's really dumb. That's all I can say. It's really unfair and dumb. So to have had that time was really special. And I think that there's the closest that Kiko and I have, but like I just can't. There's a safety. I'm really a people pleaser. I like saying yes to people. It gives me joy to say yes. I like saying yes. And when it exits, it feels good, you know? But not having to say yes or no to people during that first year of Kiko's life, it really was a blessing. I think there would have been so many people that would have wanted to come, and so many people I would have loved to have genuinely accommodate, but then maybe felt really, really spent after the fact. But in my head, been like, it was worth it. You know, we got to see our friend, you know, whatever. And I didn't have to do any of that. I feel really grateful for that. It felt like intentional, slow. And like we've shared, like, I don't know how often you get that time without a pandemic. And that feels ass backwards to me too. You know, like it shouldn't be that way, but it was really special. I don't know how much I would have missed going out because there was no FOMO for anything, you know. It was really, really special to have spent all that time with my family in a way that I don't think I would have gotten. And like purposeful pause. Like there really wasn't anything you could do. I think the business entrepreneur person in me would have wanted to, how do we get a mom group started now? I need it. I want it. Let's go. You know, and I like that. If that would have allowed for that time, it would have been fine and great. But I would never have gotten that time with my family and with my son, just me and him, learning about myself, like learning about my husband, like learning, navigating all of that without pandemic.
Yeah. And something that I thought about at that time was how the motherhood experience or the parenting experience, because shout out to fathers too who went through that, but is how that experience was different depending on how old your child or children were, you know, because, you know, for you,
really rough for parents with kids that were older. I feel really grateful to have had a newborn during that time. Like friends and books and authors that I've read who had like kids that were going to school, impossible. Their experience is not like mine at all. It was like everything crumbled. Like where me, I was just like this blissful like bubble around my family, which I really enjoyed and I'm grateful for. But like, yeah, you're totally right. It was really hard for people who had kids that were in school.
Yeah. We touched on how, you know, giving ourselves permission and getting clear on our direction moving forward and allowing ourselves to express our truth has given us this newfound confidence. But you've mentioned that becoming a mother has given you a newfound confidence. And I'd love for you to share with us why that is.
When you have a kid, you literally do not care. I feel like I do not care about all the stuff that I cared about before. There are other anxieties that replace those cares because you have a whole human to take care of and put into this society. And for me, I'm raising a boy that's half white and half Korean, and there's a lot around that. I really want to challenge for myself, for my husband, for my child. But I don't care that people know me as an editor or not anymore. I don't care that people know who I'm friends with and who I'm not friends with in a way that I really cared about that stuff beforehand. And I think that pandemic and motherhood and those two things simultaneously, there's so many lives lost during that time. There's really no time to waste. Like for me, like if by way of us, like, oh, like, yeah, I do that. Oh, you know it? Okay, then I'll talk about it. There's no time to waste anymore. I'm not doing that shit anymore. I'm not doing that like thing anymore. We're not doing that anymore because literally people lost lives, people lost time, people lost homes, people lost family members. Like there is no time to waste. For what? For what? You know, I feel so not accelerated. And I don't feel like I wasted time, but it feels like it would be a waste of time if after everything that we all collectively have gone through, if I'm going to put this on the back burner any longer, because I know I'm doing the work that I'm called to. And I know that unapologetically, there's going to be stuff to navigate. We can pivot, we can edit, we can, we're making it up and then we're going to change it, whatever. All that's fine. I don't need to know exactly what it needs to be right now, today. But if I'm not pursuing it, then I'm wasting more time. And like pre-pandemic, fine. But post-pandemic, after all that, nah, that is unwise. It feels like a waste. And it feels in vain. Like that time would have felt in vain if I don't pursue this, is how I feel. That's how charged I feel about like what that time was. If you're going back to the same shit and like, if you're going back to the same stuff and you're still mad about work and you know that you don't belong in a corporate like structure, then that's bad on you. After everything that everyone's been through, they don't care about you, like it's that for me. And the only person I care about how they think of me is like Kiko, honestly, is my son. Like I want, Zerna, another one. Zerna got these hot one-liners, when we were business coaching together and when we were talking about jobs, like, and this stuff, and this is before babies, this is before getting married, all that stuff. She said, like, our kids are not going to remember how much money we made or like how fast we were answering our emails. They're going to remember like, what is the legacy that they're going to remember us by, and like, what is legacy work, right? That to me has been like a really, really good like North Star in terms of like how I'm viewing. Kiko's not going to know if I made 6 figures or not. He's going to remember like, oh, my mom helped like women feel like in their strength and in their power. Oh, my mom helped her community like do whatever it is they need to do or felt called to do. She just helped catapult that like a little bit more. Like what, not your children, but what are people going to say about you when you're not here anymore? What is the eulogy about you going to be? So for me, it's like those emails getting answered, those tasks, that's all part of the job. That's fine. I'm not going to say don't answer your emails. Like that's not what I want to say. But for me, it's like, and you can do that in a corporate job, right? You can do that in wherever you're called to do that, right? But like, how are you making people feel? What is the legacy you're leaving about me, Sarah Kim, whether it's by way of us, whether it's whatever freelance gig that I'm taking? How are you conducting yourself with people? Are you leaving people worse or better than how you found them? Are you leaving a place better or worse than how you found it? You have the opportunity to make or break someone's day just by what you say. Like for me, it really is about legacy. Like when Zerna said that to me, it changed everything because I wanted to make 6 figures. Like I wanted to be, whatever these accolades that we value, you can buy to get into Forbes 30 under 30. You can be nominated, sure, but you also can buy your way into those things, and so those things don't hold value the way that they once did to me. And I think motherhood for me has really been the level set for that, mostly because there is this very natural, I don't care things that happens, which I feel very grateful for. It's not something I tried to do or put on. Unfortunately for me, it's been replaced with anxiety, like so much anxiety about the world and about his safety and health and all that stuff. But the not caring part is a gift. Like the only person's opinion I really care about is my son's, and not even that much. The person's opinion I really care about the most is mine. How do I feel about myself? This Quinta Brunson like quote with Oprah, she's like, when no one's in the room, like when you're by yourself, like, do you like who you are? Like, can you face yourself? And like, for me, like I value Kiko's opinion. I do. That's my guy. But for me, it is about my opinion of myself also. I have to be able to face myself in the mirror and feel proud of the work that I've done. Whether one person's experienced or 100 people have experienced it, or like many people more have experienced that, like, what is my legacy and like what is the legacy you're leaving? Like how do you want to be remembered? That's really important to me.
Yes, I love that all so much. And it just sounds like becoming a mother really sobered you up on like what truly matters.
That's it.
And really everything I feel that we've talked about and touched on, it really all comes down to our relationship with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like Earlier today, I was thinking, if you feel in any way that you don't trust yourself, explore that,
Yes.
because it's so important. And we don't really fully realize just how much our lack of trust in ourselves, whether that it impacts like our worthiness, it impacts our willingness to go after our passions, giving ourselves permission, et cetera, et cetera. Because yeah, like you said, ultimately, like, regardless of how many people experience whatever it is we're creating, we're always ultimately going to be experiencing our own self.
Yes. And that's in the context of marriage. That's in the context of motherhood. That's in the context of friendship, whether you're a daughter, your son, like whether you're a parent, like you were talking about misalignment before. If you don't know what you stand for, then you're shape shifting for everyone, and that's exhausting. And I was recently critiqued by a friend. She said, I have a certain group of friends who like posting on Instagram a lot, and we all get dressed up and it's a whole thing. But they really gave my life back when I became a mother. So Sarah, don't hate on them, because I'm like, this is like, you're just doing it for the gram. And she's like, no, like they really helped me keep a sense of self. And I want to be like generous and like non-judgmental about that. Like, I think shape shifting is okay. I think reading the room is okay. I think self-awareness is okay. I think that's fine. But deep down, like you got to know yourself and you got to like yourself, or if you don't like yourself, that's okay too. But like, what areas of yourself do you like? And then how can you explore those other things? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, a marriage is not going to make that better. It's going to make it worse. Becoming a mother is going to make that worse. All that stuff, it just comes to the forefront faster. I think marriage helps it come to the forefront faster. Having a baby just reflects that quicker. None of those things are solved. If anything, they just will like amplify it, and that just is like the worst. But I think on the flip side of that, like if you are in like a version of yourself that you like, hopefully we're always like growing, right? Like then you're just radiating, this like energy and like this strength and this love to all the people that you come in contact with within your marriage, within your friendship, at the event, across the table, at the dinner that you met, that person. And you don't have to be in a position of sad or negative. You don't have to be in a position of power. Like, you just have to be in wherever you're at. And I think that people are going to meet you there. It would be great if you're in a position of power. Like, I would love that for you. But if that's not where you're at right now, that's okay too. But I think that vulnerability, it's not about power or negative or strength or weakness. It's just about vulnerability. I truly feel that, because I think that we've all been sad before. We've all felt really insecure before. We've all felt confident before. We've all felt really good about ourselves before. And so I think that just being vulnerable about where you're at, like, is going to warrant and allow for so much more, especially because we've been inside, because we've been like to ourselves, or can you be around people, if you're not vulnerable, can you be around people who are, that might like start that off for you, that it's easy to be around those people because they started off, and then you can join in versus having to be the catalyst. Sometimes being the catalyst is really heavy and hard too. I like being the catalyst because I do that. That's just my personality. But maybe you're not, and maybe you can be around someone who is, like, who's your friend that does that, and does that well and does that thoughtfully, that you can join in versus like so much effort to do it yourself. Yeah, sobering is really good. I hope that the last 2 years have sobered all of us up. And like, if we're back into this hustle mentality, that's okay. That's like, of course, what our culture would do. And recession's scary next year, and that's all fine too. I think I was telling someone this yesterday. Do you have resolve? At the very least, you don't have to be like excited, or you can be sad, or you can be angry, any of those things, but do you have resolve about where you're at right now? That feels really important. Peace and resolve, even if it's unsexy, or even if it doesn't like pay the bills, or even if it you're still shy about it. Do you have resolve about wanting to like step into your own business and your own power? That's great. Then start there. If you're like feeling anxious about stuff or feeling like unsettled about stuff, I would just implore, like, how can you have more resolve about where you're at,
That's a great prompt. And I just want to say, like, as you were talking right now, like, You are someone who gifts others permission. Like that's one of your gifts. I feel like I'm realizing that now as like
I hadn't realized that. That's really like lovely to hear, actually. Thank
yeah,
you
yeah.
for that.
Yeah, just the things that you share and the way that you affirm and reassure. And I feel like the experiences that you create and produce are also a way of reassuring and affirming. So I had to share that because that was coming up as you were speaking. But I
Yeah,
want,
and I thank you for that so much. I hadn't considered it in that way at all.
yeah. So thank you for that. I want to bring this conversation to a close and full circle before we get into the final five, which are just five brief fill in the blanks. I'll explain. But how, you started by expressing gratitude for this season of your life. And you touched on, you're in a good season of your marriage, you're in a good season in motherhood. Um, I'd like for you to kind of expand on how you would describe this current season of your life and also share with us, if you're willing, what are some of the lessons that you're currently learning and what you're currently also working on letting go in this season.
I feel like this year, I would have never said this in the past, but I feel like it's my year. And I feel like I have arrived. And I feel like um, I want to be a spokesperson for people who are behind the scenes. Um, I'm not crazy about a mic, I'm not crazy about a stage, but if I can help to continue to highlight by doing more interviews when, you know, sharing with people I feel comfortable sharing with. I want to step into that. And I feel like ready to step into that in a way that I did not feel ready before. And it felt like very self serving and it felt like there's an ego attached to it. I don't feel that anymore. Um, and I feel that way because last year was so hard. I feel that way because a lot of moms, Zoila being one of them, was telling me that, yo, once your kid turns like 2.5, you're going to feel like a bit freer. And like once your kid turns 4 and starts to like maybe going to school at 5, like there's going to be another sort of like burst of energy that you'll have. Um, and Kiko's like going to be 3 in April. He's like 2.5, more than 2.5 now. And like when he did and when he was more self-sufficient, I felt like crazy energy, like so excited, like freedom. Um, but it got getting to the first year. To get to year 2, you got to get through year 1, and then um, our marriage was so good and tight before we had Kiko. We're traveled, we're going to parties, like we're getting photographed at parties, like it's like you feel so cool. And then you have a baby and you're like, what? Do we even know each other? Do I even like you? And you're just like, whoa, this is crazy. Like you can live parallel lives with someone, you can live with someone, you can sleep in the same bed as someone and then have a kid and be like, yo, this is crazy. We don't even know each other. What do you mean? Um, and we worked really hard to fight for our marriage. It was really hard. It was looking real hairy there a few times. And anyone who is, I remember like my friends who were like married and had kids, like being like, divorce, being like, no, no, don't say that. And now being like, oh yeah, I remember that now. It gets really real. It gets really hard really fast because when there's someone else who you both have to take care of, it's very clear as to what comes to the surface. What are your values? Wow, how do you take gender roles? Those are so stereotypical. What do you mean? How were you raised? I wasn't raised like that. Why would we raise our kids? All that stuff. So last year was so hard on our marriage. And we went to our marriage counselor who we did counseling with our first year in marriage. And it was really great. It was really, really helpful. I've done so much work, I feel like, in the last 2 years. Um, because of motherhood, I would say would be the catalyst in my marriage, on myself. what worth looks like, what value looks like, what value I'm bringing, what that is in terms of currency, um, how my ego can get in the way, what I want to be mindful of. And I've done that work. And it feels very honest. It feels very genuine. It feels very pure. It's going to be tainted with XYZ things because I'm human, and that's okay. Feel totally okay with that, giving myself grace in that. But it is my time only because I want to serve as many people as I can. It has nothing to do with me. It has as much to do with service and helpfulness as you can imagine. Genuinely, so that people feel, moms feel the way that I feel right now. I have these things at my disposal. Why am I not taking advantage of them? Oh, everyone's giving me permission except for myself. Why am I not stepping into that? Being friends with Zoila is really helpful for that. Being friends with my friend Elise is really helpful for that. Being friends with Zarna is really, really helpful for that. My community is really helpful for that. And so everyone's big upping me, but if I'm not big upping myself, then like it's a waste. You got to big up yourself. So this year I feel so within my power. I feel so synced. I will say something and it will happen. It's happening that way. I'm praying about stuff and God is answering so quick because it's aligned with what he has for me and what he has for other people. And it's genuine and it's helpful. It's not self-serving, although it can be. God cares about that too. I feel like God is answering my prayers so quick right now because I feel like my intention is pure and it feels genuine. It feels amazing. I feel amazing now in a way that I felt really bad last year.
Yeah. And you, like you said, you can't get to year 3, year 4, year 5 without getting through year 1, year 2. Mm-hmm. And that's just so important to acknowledge. Life really is a process. And this is kind of like a selfish question because I've always wondered, I haven't gotten to that experience yet, but when you are in a partnership and you have a child for the first time and each of you are becoming parents for the first time, you really are not only birthing a new human, but you're also birthing a new version of your own selves. Like you never witnessed your partner as a father prior to that, and he never witnessed you as a mother prior to that. And I've always been curious of like, how does that impact the relationship? And you having shared, it was challenging, you went to therapy. The one quote unquote selfish question that I have is like, what's one of the most important lessons that you learned from that experience and from going to therapy and now having walked away being like, okay, we're good?
This is going to sound so 101. But it really is about asking for what you need. I think that especially with the people that are closest to us, we assume that they know and they really don't know. And so asking for what you need very point blank. Nothing I say is point blank. Everything I say is loaded with emotion and loaded with past experience. And nothing I say is ever matter of fact. Everything is very loaded in what I say. And so it's really hard for me to do that. But I think getting to share exactly what I need with Alex, whether it's as easy as being like, bro, I just need you to like get the bedtime stuff like ready. Or like, I really just need more time with you. It's been really much harder to say that, which is like very vulnerable and hard, I think. And I think that another thing that my personal therapist, this is a lot of therapy. My therapist, marriage counselor, mom world. One thing that her and I were working on was acceptance. I think that I have such this big mad at the world because it's so not equal for so many people, especially moms. And that has shown, with the pandemic, right? And so I have this big mad, big mad. And my therapist is like, yo, you're taking it on your husband. And I'm like, well, I'm mad at him too. It's really hard, right? And so it's been interesting. I think that as I've extended grace to my husband and extended grace to myself, it's been much easier and there's been much more acceptance. I just kept telling her like, yo, I don't want to fake it. Like, I don't want to fake like, thanks for taking care of it. Like, no one says thanks to me for taking care of my son. Why am I going to say thanks to you? It's your job, But because I feel like there's been more room to breathe and there's been more permission and there's been more help, I can genuinely, with love, say, thank you so much. That thoughtfulness goes so far. I really value that. I thank you for taking the time. Whereas before I was like, thanks, and so I think that there's an acceptance that's happening because there's more help and there's more room for that acceptance. It's not just like willing it or faking it. I kept telling her, I don't want to fake it. I'm big, mad, for real. And then really asking for what you need from your partner specifically. Again, it's so 101 and it's just such an eye roll. I feel like rolling my eyes as I'm saying it out loud. But for me, it wasn't actually hard to ask Alex to like, yo, can you just get like the bedtime stuff ready like after the bath? It was like, can we have more time together? I don't know why that was so much harder. I think for me, because it meant setting up a babysitter and it meant not being tired and it meant like being present in our conversation and it meant all these other things. And so that was really hard for me. One thing that our therapist brought up, and coming to the person the same way that you would a coworker or a friend or a parent or a sister. I was coming so antagonistically without generosity in my head to Alex because I kind of already know. Da-da-da-da. But if you can sort of reset and level set every time, like, this dude has a long day. He is going through it at work. He looks like he's been through the ringer. He's coming through the door. And I also have been through the ringer. So how are we like extending generosity to each other? Alex would take Kiko to Target for like an hour and would just like give me life. Or I would be like, yo, do you want 5 minutes before you like step into family time? Whatever it is. And so there's so much contention. And I think that if you can extend, everyone thinks I'm the nicest person except for my husband, but if I can extend the same generosity to him that I do to the people that attend my events that I don't even know, like that's so unfair, and give him that leeway, not charity, but can I give him that graciousness? It's very different. It's not a pass. It's generosity and it's grace. That's so different. That those things have been really helpful.
Yeah. And you really do have to check yourself in that way, huh? Like, yeah, thank you for sharing that vulnerability. I really appreciate it. And also, I just have to say it really does take a village. And I'm grateful that this has been such a great conversation. I've really, really enjoyed it. And I'm grateful that you've had all the blessings that you've had, whether they looked or felt like a blessing or not. Like, I'm grateful for everything that has happened, the way it's happened for you. So final 5 is just 5 fill in the blanks. You can just do one word or more than one word, whatever first comes to your mind.
Great. Let's do it.
Ready? Okay. I'm grateful to know
Zoila, who introduced me to you.
I'm grateful to be
a mom, a daughter, a woman, Korean, a wife, a sister.
I'm grateful to overcome
marriage challenges for this season.
I'm grateful to learn.
I'm grateful to learn from people who know more than me and who know less than me. I'm grateful to learn from other people.
And I'm grateful to receive
everything that you shared with me today. And to have heard that reflected back to me. I received that and I'm really grateful to receive all of it.
Well, I'm grateful to have received this conversation as well, and so grateful that it happened when it was meant to happen. And so grateful that we met sincerely. I see so much of the parts of me that I love in myself reflected in you. And I'm just always grateful to align with people like that. So thank you for this conversation and for being so open and for this time. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for this space. Again, like to think on these things that feel so cerebral and that feel so, to me, can be corny because it's been commodified in a way. And it's not at all. It's really, this is like so lovely and like so rare. So I really thank you so much for this time.